Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're digging into a really thought-provoking piece from Down to Earth, extracting those key insights vital for your UPSC preparation, relevant for both mains and prelims.
Exactly. And this DTE article, it does a great job bridging, historical viewpoints with the kind of contemporary issues, environment, society, even philosophy that pop up constantly in the syllabus.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack the enduring relevance of William Blake, the 18th, 19th century poet, looking at his critiques of industrialization, societal change, all through the lens of this DTE analysis.
And it's not just about poetry, is it? It's really about understanding these recurring patterns, these human and societal challenges that, frankly, are still very much with us.
Absolutely. Think of Blake, as the DTE article puts it, as this voice speaking truth during Britain's huge industrial shift. A bit like the need for clarity today, with all the information overload.
Yeah, it's quite striking. He was cutting through the noise of over-rationality, as the article says. And, that recent Delhi performance mentioned in DTE, it just shows his work still really resonates.
It does. And the core idea from the article, Blake's warning about swift urbanization and unsustainable development.
And the call for balance and fairness.
Yes. It's incredible, isn't it? How those seemingly simple words written centuries ago feel so relevant to the issues UPSC aspirants are tackling right now.
Totally. The article mentions that performance, a golden string, blending Sushila Raymond's music with Blake, plus Jeet Tail, William Dalrymple. It's a living interpretation.
Yeah, it shows how these ideas aren't just stuck in the past, they're constantly being re-examined.
So if we dive into Blake's specific concerns, the ones the DTE article highlights, you see the parallels immediately. Mechanization, for instance.
Right, and the exploitation of nature, that's a big one. Plus the loss of that spiritual connection with the earth.
These are definitely not just historical footnotes for UPSC prep. They're central environmental and social questions.
And Blake wasn't just theorizing, was he? He lived it. In London, during the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly. The DTE article really emphasizes that. His firsthand view of London, seeing those marks of weakness, marks of woe, it clearly fueled his critique of where things were heading.
The article paints a pretty grim picture of his London, not just the pollution, the bad air and water.
No, also the social injustice, especially child labor. DTE mentions him seeing the sooty faces of poor children, the corruption. It was all intertwined for him.
And that poem, London, which DTE quotes, I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow. That word, chartered.
Yes, Professor Hutchings' analysis cited in the article is key here. Chartered wasn't just descriptive, it signaled ownership, commodification.
Of straits, of the river itself.
Right. Subjugating both people and nature to, as the article says, the logic of commercial profit. That's a powerful early critique of economic models, very relevant for UPSC discussions on development versus environment.
Precisely. And DTE highlights how Blake saw London becoming almost like hell because of it all.
Yeah, the imagery is intense, fiery abyss, black sun, those vast spiders. It's almost prophetic, isn't it? A warning about a society consuming itself.
What's really interesting, though, is where his environmentalism came from. As DTE points out, it wasn't based on, say, science as we know it.
Not at all. It was deeply theological, imaginative. His statement, quoted in DTE, everything that lives is holy. That wasn't just flowery language.
It was fundamental to how he saw the world, right? That connection between nature, spirit, imagination.
The article reminds us about his childhood vision, seeing angels in trees. That really tells you something about his perception of nature as inherently sacred.
A stark contrast to the sort of mechanistic view that was gaining ground during the Enlightenment.
Absolutely, and that connects to his use of anthropomorphism, which the DTE article discusses, giving human qualities to animals or nature.
Like in The Tiger or The Fly.
Exactly. In The Fly, DTE quotes him asking, "Am not I a fly like thee? Or art not thou a man like me?" For Blake, this wasn't just a literary trick.
It was about showing kinship, connection.
Precisely. He believed nature was alive, conscious, and capable of moral and spiritual engagement, as DTE puts it. It fostered empathy, challenged that whole idea of human superiority.
Professor Hutchings calls it Blake's relational ecology, the article notes. That feels very relevant to UPSC debates on environmental ethics, moving beyond just utility.
Yeah, it was a direct challenge, as Hutchings argues and DTE reports, to that Enlightenment push to just objectify nature, dominate it. Blake saw interconnectedness, inherent worth.
The article also points to those lines from Auguries of Innocence. A robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage.
Hmm. Powerful stuff. It suggests even the suffering of a small creature has cosmic ripples, affects the whole moral fabric of the universe. It really drives home that interconnectedness theme.
So Blake wasn't just worried about the smog and the factories, the physical stuff.
No, his critique went deeper. The DTE article clarifies he saw Enlightenment science and industrial capitalism as promoting a worldview that, well, that stripped nature of spirit.
That quote from Jerusalem about the specter
Right.
and Angela Heggie's analysis in the article, they both point to his resistance to seeing nature as just a passive thing to be studied and used.
Right. And those famous dark satanic mills in Jerusalem. Hutchings, in the DTE piece, clarifies Blake likely meant the destruction of rural life by industry, not just factories themselves.
That's a direct hit on UPSC themes, isn't it? Economic development versus environmental impact, loss of traditional ways of life. Makes you wonder about our own dark satanic mills today.
It does. Interestingly, DTE notes Blake wasn't always seen as a nature poet, like, say, Wordsworth.
Right, they both knew London, but Wordsworth often found beauty, while Blake seemed more focused on the encroaching industrial darkness.
Yeah, the article suggests Blake might have been offended by the passivity in Wordsworth's view of nature. Blake felt implicated, involved in its fate.
But then there was his time in Feltham, those 3 years the article mentions. That seemed to shift things for him.
It did, significantly. Away from the city, in a rural setting, he had this spiritual renewal. DTE notes his later work leaned more into pastoral, ecological themes.
That letter quoted in the article about seeing his savior by the light of the sun, that really captures that renewed connection.
And DTE draws this really compelling parallel between Blake's concern for exploited children, like in The Chimney Sweeper.
Clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. Chilling lines.
Chilling, yes. A parallel between those children and the exploited natural world. For Blake, the article argues commodifying life, whether human or non-human, led to suffering. It was linked.
That definitely resonates with current discussions on interconnected social and environmental justice, a key area for UPSC.
And his critique didn't stop there. He also took aim at organized religion, seeing it as often supporting these oppressive systems.
DTE quotes those lines from The Chimney Sweeper, again praising God, priest, and king who make up a heaven of our misery, and mentions the garden of love, where the chapel itself is restrictive.
Yeah, he was deeply skeptical of institutions that seemed to enable injustice, another angle relevant to sociopolitical analysis for the exams.
So in the end, as DTE suggests, nature itself, in Blake's view, could be a form of resistance.
Yes. Think of those lines from Auguries of Innocence. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower.
His sacred minimalism, the article calls it.
Exactly. Finding profound meaning in the small things. It's a challenge to our modern focus on scale, speed, constant growth paradigms, often debated in the UPSC context.
So to wrap up Blake's view, the DTE article summarizes it well. He wasn't an environmentalist like we think of today, maybe.
No, not the conventional sense.
Yeah.
But his poetry offers, as DTE says, a radical environmental vision, one that still speaks to modern ecological thinking. His call to see nature as subject, as kin, that remains incredibly powerful.
So for our listeners, the UPSC aspirants, the key takeaway here is that Blake's insights from the 18th and 19th centuries, brought to life by this down-to-earth article, they offer really valuable perspectives on today's challenges.
Challenges of unchecked progress, impacting people, impacting nature, themes woven all through the UPSC syllabus across different papers.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to chew on, building on Blake. How might his emphasis on inherent value, on interconnectedness, how might that inform your understanding of current debates?
You know, debates on sustainable development, environmental justice, social equity. Blake offers a potent historical and philosophical lens for analyzing these critical UPSC topics.
Exactly. So as you continue your preparation, we really encourage you to reflect on how these kinds of insights, historical, philosophical, can deepen your understanding and sharpen your analysis for the exams.
And if you found this deep dive helpful for your UPSC journey, please do like and subscribe for more explorations like this one. Drop your thoughts or any questions in the comments below. We're always keen to hear from you.
The source for today's discussion was an excellent article from Down to Earth, or DTE,